Hello there, welcome back to World of Warship Legends with Derka, where today we're going to show off the Tier 8 Tech Tree Soviet cruiser, the Dmitri Donskoi. To be honest, I feel like I had a little bit of difficulty doing well on this ship at the beginning, so I wanted to share with you guys some things that I've learned along the way, and let's compare her to those other Tier 8 ships. So, let's go check her out. Donskoi sits at the top of the Soviet light cruiser line, but it's important to look and see she's actually kind of a heavy cruiser. They're 180mm guns, kind of like the Talon we're used to seeing in there, the Gorky, the Molotov, ships like that. They're a whole inch bigger than the Chapeyev and the Schors, and that would be what you're probably used to in the line, some kind of fast shooting 152mm HE spamming ships. That is not what this is. So with this knowledge, she's very, very similar to the best tech tree ship, in my opinion, the Talon. They have very similar playstyles and quite a bit in common, and that is going to set the stage for my build and how I decided to play her. The game in the background, domination on Atlantic, and the matchmaking could not be more perfect for the Donskoi. We end up with 6 kills, but I'll be honest, parts of this were not the best cruiser play, so I'll be sure to try to point that stuff out so that I don't lead you astray. If you're on a flank, moving around and getting a good flanking position is a strong move in this ship. If you're in the middle, try to predict which side the Reds are going to go heavy to and get your guns ready to pummel them. Our build. Aiming system, prop, rudder, and MBM3. The commander, free-to-play Nikki Kuznetsov with long range, intuitive, and basically all the DPM skills beyond that. The inspirations I am currently using, basically the same for all of my long-range Soviet heavy cruisers like Riga and the Talon and the Stalingrad if I were to ever get my hands on that thing again. I've only had her as a rental, but they are Mimbelli and Mikawa. Intuitive, if you weren't aware, is basically twist and track for cruisers. It's also going to improve your radar and sonar durations a little bit. It can be very handy, especially in mid to late games or when you're in a destroyer hunting kind of role. Mikawa as an inspiration to soften up that 14.7 kilometer stock detection range. It's awful. You're going to get outspotted by battleships, especially now that BBs have concealment modules. So Mikawa, either that or get rid of your rudder and put concealment module. That might not be a bad idea either. This ship. Positioning is going to be extremely, extremely important. The armor isn't good enough to really protect you from a whole lot. Your greatest asset is going to be your extremely long-range guns with their very high velocity, just like the Talon. Now, speaking of that survivability, let's jump in and see how she compares to the other Tier 8s. I know there's a lot of people trying to decide right now, which line of Tier 8s should I go down, what's more suiting to my playstyle, so on and so forth. So, 43,000 health with the hull upgrade. It's actually lower than Hipper, Prince Eugen, and Albemarle from the previous tiers. So it's not a high point for Donskoi at all. She does have a little better heals than Buffalo and Ibuki, so 3rd place overall for her effective health of 60k. Just barely tying with Buffalo. Now the armor, like mentioned, is not that great, guys. There's a lot of green on this ship. That's 25mm of armor. This is at a tier where really a lot of tier 7s have more robust armor schemes than that, and at tier 8, Buffalo and Rune are going to enjoy being wrapped in 27mm of armor, giving them much better protection against 380mm battleships, which are pretty common at tier 7. Donskoi? She's not going to fare well against really any battleship caliber at tier 7, 8, or legendary tier. You can get lucky and catch shells on her very skinny 120mm belt, but that's really all that you're going to be able to bounce, and for that reason, I really think her best protection is distance, being farther away from opponents to where you could maybe juke, jive, dodge a couple shots, or just be angled enough that you're a small enough target. Now the guns, well, they're pretty awesome. I have my reload down to 8.5 seconds with this build, and that helps her come in 2nd place overall for HE DPM, 3rd for AP DPM. Now, the high explosive shells, the alpha isn't great. neither is the fire chance. So I would mostly just stick with shooting armor-piercing shells. Occasionally, if you have a stubborn battleship that is bow in and there's just nothing you can do, you know, lob a couple HE shells. Or if you're coordinating with a destroyer about to send some torpedoes a battleship's way, you could try to set a fire or something like that. But mostly, guys, you're going to get a lot better results out of the armor-piercing shells. Like mentioned earlier, they have the longest stock range of any of the tier 8s, and another thing I wanted to point out right now on my build in this game, we're still missing 2 ship upgrades. The hull upgrade and the targeting system. The targeting system would add another 1.5 kilometers of range. So with Kuznetsov beyond range and that, you're going to have a very, very long range cruiser. The AP shells, they're not the best at the tier in the amount of armor that they can punch through. Buffalo has that honor, really. Rune, it's going to be anything less than 10 kilometers. Rune will do better, and then the Donskoi will beat Rune at anything above 10 kilometers. This is a little chart from WoW's fitting tool. You can type that up there in your browser, go compare any gun from the PC, and most of the shell characteristics and gun characteristics for PC are the same here. So go compare and look around. What's really great about the Donskoi is the flight time of the shells. They're very high velocity. So for instance, at 12 kilometers, Donskoi shells are going to get to their target a 1.5 seconds faster than Buffalo. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to hit moving targets, agile cruisers, little destroyers, so on and so forth. You'll be a lot more accurate with the Donskoi than, say, the Buffalo, or the Baltimore, or the Des Moines. A big shout out to the friendly FDG who probably unintentionally saved me from taking a lot of damage from that Montana. So thank you, sir. Moving on. Donskoi has torpedoes, and they're more useful than we're actually used to on Soviet cruisers. They have an 8-kilometer range. Again, I've spent most of this time saying that you're going to be fighting from long ranges, but I mean, there are instances when 8-kilometer range does come in handy. It sure is a heck of a lot better than the 4-kilometer range that sometimes we find on Soviet ships. The torps are slow, but stealthy, do about 14k damage apiece. The AA, it's not amazing. 242 DPS. That gets beat by more than half of the tier 7 cruisers, so you'll definitely need to watch out for CVs. Donskoi, she's pretty fast, 36 knots base. That's the best out of the other tier 8 cruisers up here, Buffalo, Rune, and Ibuki, but that doesn't make her a candidate for being an agile cruiser or anything like that. One more stat farther will show you why. The turning circle is massive. 970 meters is more than any tier 7 battleship, including Iowa and Vladivostok. So let that sink in. She handles terribly. And that's why I really think you should just focus on range and damage output. Maybe stealth? I don't know, you could probably go with an interesting build using the concealment module and Ivan be Lightful, and whatever that French commander is where you disappear faster. Lemonnier? Anyways, let me know if you've tested that out. In this game, I could say I honestly could have been a little bit farther back. We got right up in the action a little bit too early on. I guess it opened the doors for all of these kills, but really playing from farther back would probably be your best bet. That is absolutely what the strength of this ship is. I would say, especially in the earlier game, being cautious. You will be spotted pretty early on, even if you have Mikawa on there, just because of the terrible concealment. The ship is huge and tall, and you're going to be spotted early on. So if you play cautious, kind of stay back a little bit, then it would limit the amount of battleships that are going to take pot shots at you. And there are a plethora of long-range BBs that can deal a lot of damage to you even at long range. So armor angling can help reduce a little bit of that, but not all. If anything, it helps make you a smaller target. The rear firing angles from the guns seem to be pretty good, so my favorite way to set up at the start of a match is stern in, angled away, and you can use the propulsion mod to bait and dodge enemy shots. If you're far enough away, it's actually pretty effective. Okay, here is a quick tutorial on that and a little in-game scenario. Alright, start of the match. We're staring down the barrels of 12 conch guns and 8 Freddy guns. Kind of a scary proposition. So you're just going to need to time when the enemies are going to fire their guns for this to work effectively. Sure, you could count in your head, you nerds, but to be honest, after playing the game enough, it's just kind of instinct. So when the enemy is about to fire, you just want to change your throttle position, and this will help nullify their auto aim. Now Conqueror here is ripple firing, and so actually he hit me more than he should have. If it's full salvos, it's a lot easier. Now, like mentioned, this cruiser is huge. As cruisers go, it's one of the biggest targets in the game, but with this simple timing and use of the prop mod, we've only been hit 5 or 6 times by conch shells out of 24, and 0 out of 8 for Freddy shells. The closer you are, the less this works, obviously, but in this area, we were able to deal about 45k and taking minimal damage ourselves. Now, the closer you are, the less this works, obviously, and there is a Linen player out there with a dev strike on me to prove it. It might show up on YouTube one day, who knows. Okay, let's check back into the game. Baltimore goes down, that's 4 kills. There is a Weimar, there is a Suzuya. Both of those guys are also going to be my kills. We just need to track them down and find them. Now, the part that I didn't mention, there was a lot of me sitting stern in and using the prop mod. You can push pretty well on a flank depending what's on the flank. You just have to be careful to not get focused by a lot of ships. But I mean, if there are, single ships alone on a flank or destroyers that you suspect, you can absolutely push in this ship and be pretty effective. As far as hunting destroyers goes, you have a 100-second sonar, 4.4 kilometer ship detection, and you have that lovely, lovely Soviet radar, almost 12 kilometers of range to detect ships. If you don't feel like refill station's worth it, run fully packed, get 3 of each. There's nothing wrong with that. I just kind of wanted the DPM to be boosted a little bit. That's just my personal preference. Overall, as the mix of tier 8s go, I'm probably going to say Buffalo is still better. The overall better armor rating is better with the 27 millimeters everywhere, much better AA, and the highest DPM at the tier so far for our 4 little cruisers we got up here. Buffalo takes the cake. Donskoi is a lot of fun though, especially if you start to get the hang of her, and if you have a good division to kind of take care of you. Solo play in this ship, you can kind of get overwhelmed pretty easily due to your poor armor. The amount of damage these AP shells can do to broadsides, especially cruisers, is super addicting, and that's why I said the matchmaking in this game was perfect. Only 2 battleships, lots of cruisers for me to waste. So, what cruisers have you guys tested at tier 8 so far? Which one of them do you think is the best? I think I hear a lot of Buffaloes. I hear a lot of complaints about Rune and Ibuki, and I think it's mostly due to their playstyle being misunderstood. And Buffalo is obviously the easiest of all these cruisers to play. It's an American support cruiser. You park behind an island. Easiest cruiser to play. Anyways, we'll try to get videos out on them, but obviously I'm trying to grind my way up, get some modules and the upgrades on these ships before I just put out a video. Also, apologies about the last video, the secondary fire build video. I was unable to see anyone's comments on that. I'm sure YouTube support is diligently working on it, and we could expect that fixed sometime before the ice caps melt. But anyways, I apologize about that, guys. I hope the comments work on this video. Anyways, thank you as always for watching. Be sure to like the video and subscribe for future ones. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.